first and foremost, I've always loved music. Music, and that's probably true for everybody that you interview. We probably all share a deep love that started at an early age for music. My dad gave me his Beatles records, and I actually, when I was 7, I inherited this huge box of garage sale records from my aunt, and inside that box was literally like everything I would love, growing up. David Bowie, Electric Light Orchestra, Black Sabbath, Zeppelin. It was a box of records that didn't sell at a garage sale, probably because they were overpriced. But that turned me on to music, and started that kid fantasy thing going about music. But probably like the first trigger for me about I need to try to do that. I need to try to figure out how that's done. I had a best friend in school named Craig Stafford, whose uncle is Kurt Carroll, who from Even Steven, and he plays with Bogart Jones now. But that is all I ever heard about from Craig. Is this cool uncle that he had, Kurt, and he would always talk about him, and he's playing, and my Uncle Kurt plays that song, and so like I create this fantasy in my head of who this Kurt guy is, and then you finally meet him, and he's awesome. He's like he's like the guy from an 80s movie, a hero, and he has this beautiful girlfriend who's now I think his wife, and he pulls up in the IROC and stuff, and I think I'd like to try that if I could. But then he'd sit down at the piano, in Craig's house and play, and it was the most amazing thing you'd ever heard. And so, he was really kind of the first music person who I knew, albeit through my friend. But here's what really kind of triggered the whole band thing. Like the band thing for me, the fire was lit the summer between my 8th grade year and high school. Which in and of itself is a big summer anyway, if you think back to what you were doing that summer. But that summer, I lived in Bartonville. We grew up in Bartonville, and that whole summer, every Sunday from about 6 o'clock until 10 o'clock, they had teen night at a bar in Bartonville. It was called Pippin's Pub. And they had this teen night there, and so all of our friends would go up there and, try to meet girls, and trying to figure out who the kids from the other schools were and stuff before school started. And we would hang out there, and every Sunday there was a band playing. It was the same band every Sunday. It was Strict Victim. And Strict Victim, if you don't know Dave and Kevin and Matt Tomljanovich and Chris Warmer and those guys, it blew my mind. It absolutely blew my mind to see kids that were not much older than me, that were, probably 4 or 5 years older than me, that were excellent players, and they were excellent performers, and they looked great, and played the songs that we all loved. And so I would go home, never ever meeting a girl there, but always coming home and immediately fantasizing about playing at Pippin's Pub on teen night. And that's really what set me off. I mean, I was obsessed then. My parents would tell you that that's all I ever talked about was I had to get a guitar. Please get me a guitar. And so they did. And, I sat down just like most people did and figured out how to play some stuff by ear, and met some people that played and picked up a little bit of stuff here and there, and eventually could play a couple songs. But it really everything that I've done musically to this point can be traced back to those Sunday nights at Pippin's Pub in Bartonville, watching those guys play, Mama Let Him Play and Moni Moni, and, stupid songs that we've all played for years and years now. But that was it. That's what triggered me. So the quest was on to get this guitar, and I have to be honest with you, and there are going to be people who watch this that, first of all, completely understand what I'm about to say, but also are disgusted by what I'm about to say. But I had very little interest in actually learning to play, and I had probably a lot more interest in getting into a band. It didn't interest me to sit down and figure out exactly how things were done and to intricately figure out solos, which has been to my detriment my entire career. I was way more interested in getting up in front of people and entertaining and performing and cracking jokes and, doing stuff like that. So you know, that's going to be probably something that is an underlying theme for everything I tell you during this interview. So it wasn't long after the 8th grade visits to Pippin's Pub, watching Strict Victim play, that my parents did in fact buy me a used guitar for my birthday. It was a Univox Les Paul Special. It doesn't exist anymore because it became very experimental over the years, trying to change it up a bit. But that was my first guitar, and I loved it because I loved Ace Frehley, and so I had a guitar that looked like his. And as soon as I got that guitar, the hunt was on to find guys, most who were equally as inexperienced as I was, to start a band. And we did. We got together with some guys in high school. One of them, ironically, is Doug Rendelman, who I have literally played with now for the best part of 35 years. He's been in all of my long-term bands, including the bands in high school. We played our very first paid performance together in high school, which, as I recollect, was for the Job's Daughters. I don't know if you're familiar with the Job's Daughters organization, but it's an all-girl outfit that it's a religious group that gets together and they do good things as girls, but the key point is that this event was the Illinois chapter celebration of the Job's Daughters at the Shrine Mosque in downtown Peoria, and we were the only boys there, the 5 of us, our band then known as One Night Stand, and we played for the Job's Daughters, and that's when I decided that I need to play music forever. I always need to play music. So I think that's probably a common story you hear, I'm guessing. But anyway, that was our first gig. And, you know, back then in high school, we did a lot of, you know, obviously free stuff. Played for a lot of high school events, a lot of high school dances. Yeah, similar to the way everybody gets started. You start playing these things in school, and, you know, and then they kind of start to work up. And you weed out people who, you know, that were playing with you in high school that decided that they didn't want that to be their lifestyle anymore. And then some of us never made that decision. We just kept going with it. And I was one of those guys. But I played with really great guys in high school. You know, Doug, of course, who I'll talk about throughout this conversation. But played with a couple of brothers, Tony and Troy Quinn. Todd and Troy Quinn. Tony was their other brother who I went to school with. Todd and Troy Quinn, 2 of the most talented people who I've ever known who didn't really play music after our high school band. So just really weird that, you know, the most talented guys in that band are guys that we don't play with now. We're stranded, boys. I hope we have more Yingling. Played with them, you know, made some connections doing that. You know, played for, like I said, a lot of events and parties, and that was really my only high school band. Taste-wise, you know, while all the other guys were playing like 80s metal and stuff like that, we didn't play that stuff. We played kind of, I guess what would be considered like new wave or alternative music now. Played a lot of Duran Duran and Cure and stuff like that. That was kind of the music that we liked. The Quinn brothers had a cousin named Jeff Peterson, who is the bass player for a popular band called All Desires. And they were like a new wave type band that played around the area and played all the clubs and stuff. So their mom would take us out and sneak us in to the bars where his cousin was playing, and we get to watch them play, and that really inspired us. So, you know, while everybody else was playing, you know, Motley Crue and Judas Priest and stuff, we were playing Duran Duran and The Cure. That was kind of our thing. It's kind of weird, you know, but I like it, and I still like that music. So anyway, that was high school. So probably the next part of my story, because I went right from high school. In college, I didn't, you know, I had to kind of think back about this. I didn't play much music early in my college time. I was only in college for a year and a half. I did stand-up comedy for a while instead. I did that and traveled and did stand-up comedy, and that was kind of my thing there for a while. But then I kind of gravitated back toward music. My buddy who I'd played with in high school, Scott Wignall, and you know, of course, Doug Rendelman, who like I said, I've played with forever. We started playing again, you know, after testing out a few different lineups and groups of people playing, we started playing and booking shows. I think we were called, I don't remember what we were called back then. I know we had a bunch of terrible names. I think we were called Minx at one point. But a lot of different people had passed through that little time period of playing music with me. I played music with John Wheatley, who plays in Trailer Park. Some of those guys. My buddy Sean Ketchum now, who is, I believe, north of here, does a lot of stuff. But somehow, this group of people had came together. I know it was Doug and I, Scott Wignall, Kim Rippey, who is now, oh boy, yeah, what's her last name now? Anyway, let's go back. So anyway, somehow we ended up connecting with Kim Rippey, who is Dave Chastan's niece. So if you know who Dave Chaston is, the blues guy, Kim is his niece, and as it turns out, is an unbelievable piano player. Incredible. Like, I met her and she was a 15-year-old kid and was playing boogie woogie and, honky-tonk type piano. She's unbelievable. I mean, just incredible back then, and you just knew watching her that she was going to just be unbelievable as she got older. So we all somehow ended up starting to play, and we really didn't play anywhere because most of us were underage. We played garage parties and really just kind of played to impress ourselves. But we ended up starting to play at these open stages where they would let underage kids come in and perform, and we would go play at like Doc Rocks, and we would play at Wet Willie's, which is where Alexander's is now. Incredible music place, back in the day. But we would go out. Kim's dad would actually take us to go play at these open stages, and as it turns out, we got pretty good, and we were playing kind of weird stuff. We were playing soul music, and we were playing, stuff that was a little different than most people. I don't know exactly how it happened, but we ended up getting hooked up with Sean Bryan. And Sean Bryan is a guy who's played music in town forever. At the time, I think he had played with Gypsy Headin', several other bands, but he contacted us, and it was almost like this Colonel Tom Parker kind of thing. He contacted us, and he's like, I'm going to take you guys and make you a band. We're going to go out and play. And we're, I think I was 19 at the time. Kim was 15. We're all underage. None of us could play anywhere. But somehow Sean, he started practicing with us, and it turns out he did understand. He'd been booking this band, and he understood, and knew all the clubs, and knew how to get into places, and knew how to book. And before long, I think we practiced for about a year and put the show together. And before long, we had a band. And that band was called Rumor Has It. And again, several different lineups. I know that I've watched guys do this video where they've tried to remember everybody. I don't think I can remember. There have been so many people in and out of these bands over the years that the memories just kind of spliced together. But Rumor Has It started, and it was really my first real working band. So it was the band that we were going out and playing 3 nights out of the week or 2 nights out of the week and playing events and, opening for artists and stuff like that. It was my first real band, and all thanks to Sean Bryan, who understood how to run a bar band. He taught me a lot about, the booking of the band and creating relationships with these places, and he really did kind of whip us into shape in terms of how to be a real performing band. And so, plus he was a pretty good guitar player back in the day. So. I was played for several years. I'm bad with dates, so I'm not going to try to reconstruct, forensically like when these bands started and went, but early 90s for me was all Rumor Has It. It was all I did. It was all I did for a living. I didn't have any other job or anything, so it was all about playing as often as we possibly could. And Sean kept the band booked really well. We did some crazy stuff. We'd drive to Iowa and play on a Friday night sometimes, but mostly around the area. Did a lot of college types events, things like that. kind of music that we were playing kind of lent itself to that. Got to open for some bands, so that was kind of cool. Flock of Seagulls. Played with the Flock of Seagulls. Actually sat and met and had dinner with the Flock of Seagulls guy, which that's kind of weird. But, being in a cover band allowed me to do that. It was kind of fun and interesting. But we had a great time with Rumor Has It, and it kind of ran its course, through the 90s. Played a lot, and it kind of fizzled out. Sean started recording bands locally. Other guys kind of went their own direction, and we took a little hiatus. It was actually one of the only times I hadn't played with Doug Rendelman for a while. So more on Doug Rendelman a little later. But for right now, this is kind of what happened between Rumor Has It and then what we did next. So left Rumor Has It, joined a band called Freudian Slip with Cindy Youngren and all kinds of great players. I mean, lots of fun people in that band, people who I'd never played with before, and I was really just a rhythm guitar player in that band because there were some great players. Jeff McEnroe was playing guitar, and Keith Stromer was the bass player, and Cindy is unbelievable, an incredible singer. So I got to lay back and play guitar a little bit. And at the time, I was starting to date my wife. Earlier than that, we'd moved in together and stuff, so we were starting our life there. And the Freudian Slip thing, for whatever reason, I think they got tired of me. I don't know. I didn't get tired of them. I love people. But I think for whatever reason, we just kind of grew apart. They were going to go they were going to start playing and writing original music. And I had started to really start considering original music myself, and really got interested in the idea of writing. I was in love with bands like Jellyfish and Enough's Enough, these bands that were inspired by the Beatles and Electric Light Orchestra and stuff like that, and Queen. And I was just really in that phase. I was starting to write songs at home. I was starting to gather some recording equipment, and put out an ad looking for other people trying to write songs like this. And the people who responded to me, the first person who responded to me was Denny Smith. And Denny Smith was in the band called Fox in Pekin for years, and as it turns out, loved all this music, loved all this same music that I loved. Knew who Jellyfish was, loved Prince, loved Cheap Trick, he was living that life. And we hit it off very quick. Started writing music together. Worked with Dave Glover, who remember back the Pippin's Pub story. Dave Glover, early idol. We would sit in Dave's basement and write these power pop songs, and then over time decided that we wanted to take those songs out and play them and present them in a way that represented the music and the songs, which were power pop, kind of psychedelic, kind of bubblegum, kind of whimsical. So we wanted to put together this show around that, and Dave, we moved on from Dave, and Dave was doing some other things too, and we found this guitar player named Don Mabus, and Don Mabus, incredible guitar player, virtuoso guitar player, amazing guitar player. As it turns out, was also into all this same music. Loved the Beatles, loved the Who, loved, all of the same music that we loved. So we really kind of created this kinship around this music and started writing songs that were kind of inspired by it. And we're pretty prolific with it. We found a drummer, Shandel Tassard, who had been playing in a band with Don, and we formed a band called Love Shine. And Love Shine was our original project through the middle of the 90s. And it was fun. It was, probably about 80% writing, where we were just down in the basement writing and getting songs ready to record someday, and about 20% playing it out, because there weren't a lot of places for us to play. We would be on the same bill as bands like Mudvayne and, Raw Honey, bands that were playing kind of harder rock, and, here we were, singing about daisies and stuff like that. It was a weird mixture of stuff, but it kind of worked, and we had a lot of fun doing it. was just fun. But it was original music, and everybody had a lot of passion in it. And when you get into those passionate situations sometimes, just like that. We played a last couple of concerts, and I've thought about this over the years. At the time, it really bothered me when Love Shine broke up, because I had invested so much personal energy in it, writing these songs, and all this time that we spent in the basement, learning these songs. We're one of those bands that practiced way more than we ever played. But I look at it this way now. I that was never going to be the path I want to take. I was never that guy that was going to go out and play my own songs. Denny, on the other hand, definitely is. He is that guy. If you look at what he's done over the years, he was born to do that. So I got to ride that for a little bit. I got to jump on Denny's back and ride that for a while. Got to play with Don Mavis. So I look back at Love Shine with no regrets at all. It was incredible. But definitely kind of sealed for me that I was better off being in the, where I had originally started, in the cover band, the guy up there entertaining and having fun. But Love Shine was a lot of fun and very rewarding. So anyway, Love Shine goes away. Those guys kind of do their own thing, and I make a phone call one night to a guy who I'd met playing, years before, named Mike Mercer. And Mike was the guitar player for Bloody and the Renegades. Okay, so he played for Bloody Mess. He was a guitar player in Bloody Mess's country band, which confused everybody when Bloody did that, but it was actually really awesome. Mike was a guitar player in that band, and we struck up a conversation one night at a show, and I remembered his name, and Doug and I had been in contact with Doug Rendelman. Doug's back in my life again, about getting back together and playing, going out and having some fun, putting something together. And the idea of what I wanted to do is I wanted to play funk and disco music. Specifically, I didn't think anybody around town at the time in Peoria was playing disco, so I thought that would be something kind of new and different that we could do. So we ended up calling Mike Mercer and said, hey, would you meet with Doug and I and talk about this funk and disco band that we're thinking about putting together? And he thought about it and finally got in touch with us, said sure. And I think it was 1999 maybe. We got together and formed what became Jam Sandwich. And so, I would say that leads us into present day, but that was like 20 some odd years ago, 23 years ago. But we started that band, and we added, of course, Doug Rendelman was playing with us. We added the bass player, again, back to Pippin's Pub, 8th grade year, Matt Tomlyanovich, who played with Strict Victim, became our bass player, and we started this funk band. And shortly after we started the funk band, we realized we couldn't be a real funk band without horns. So we added a trumpet player named Bill Truelove, and eventually added a piano player named Chris Summers, and became Jam Sandwich, and played funk and disco music and soul music, and wore crazy costumes from time to time, and had a lot of fun with that. At the time, it was pretty fresh and new, and we were at the perfect age, where we knew people were coming to our shows, and it was a lot of fun. Started off fun, remained fun for many, many years, still is fun. We still had fun with it. Again, lots of people in and out of that band over the years. From that original setup, we ended up flip-flopping bass players. Scott Wignall from my early bands came in and played. We flip-flopped keyboard players. I think we've had 3 different keyboard players now. Eric Anderson, who played with us back in Rumor Has It as well, joined for a while. And of course, Steve Davis from Galesburg, Thrillsville, has been with us forever. And as much as I would like to talk about like how accomplished this band is, it really is. It's not anything about that I want to say about it. It's the fact that it literally is 6 guys who have always enjoyed hanging out together. It became a reason just to hang out and have fun, and we really didn't think too much, honestly, about the music. Probably didn't take it nearly as seriously as we could have. And I think that may be the thing when you get a little bit older and you're playing this music, you're still playing in cover bands around here, is it becomes your social thing. It's what you do. So really we developed a brotherhood of that band, and I'm sure a lot of people watching this can relate to that, that camaraderie that you have, and it's still strong today. We still go out and play, we still get together and practice in Mike's basement, and same things that we used to do back when we were 15 years old, getting started. Just a lot of fun. That band's had a pretty good run. 23 years this year. We're hoping to make it to 25, so we'll play a couple more years probably. But it's been very rewarding playing in that band. It's some of the shows that we've been able to do, and places we've had people fly us out to Las Vegas to play on the Strip. We played on a boat in the middle of Lake Tahoe. We played in front of thousands of fans at Green Bay Packers games multiple times. It's been a culmination of playing in a cover band all this time to be able to do those types of things, and awesome to get to do it with this group of guys. Yeah, so I guess I'm one of those musicians who I like to play a lot. I like to. I would rather be playing than not playing. And that's no offense to my family. I love spending time with my family, hanging out and doing stuff on the lake here. But I like to play. I really like just being in front of people and playing. That has led me over the years, even while I've been in Jam Sandwich, to do some other kind of things. And I guess one of the weird kind of out of my comfort zone things that I've done is playing the acoustic solo shows. I'm not sure when that started and became a thing, but it seems like everybody does it now. You almost have to do it. Of course, with COVID, it got very, very handy to be able to do the acoustic shows and be set up to do that, because that's all we could do for a while. But it kind of opened things up a little bit for me, being able to play different styles and being able to concentrate on really the crowd interaction and really, putting on a more intimate type of show. With Jam Sandwich or with any band, you're up there, you've got 6 other guys around you, and you're kind of, you've got some safety nets and some safety. When you're playing by yourself, with just a guitar, you have to be entertaining nonstop. There's no place to hide. So that's been fun, but I think it's probably also helped me and made me a little bit better a musician, dare I say. Not much better, trust me. Not as good as I was in high school. Just a little better. But also during this period of time, over the last probably 10 years or so, I've also started a couple of other projects up. One thing I've done is I've started playing music at church a lot. So I've played with a couple different bands in church, which is kind of weird because you play in the band at church, but it's the guys that also play on the weekends. So it's me and the other cover band guys, Rod Teeney and Chris Boer and Eric Wrigley and Kevin Smith from Captain Quirk, and it's just all the band guys, except now we're at church playing on Sundays. But it's been great because it's gotten a lot of us to go to church, which we needed to, clearly. But I also started a couple other bands. Started a band called the Corn Wolves. And the Corn Wolves is an all-acoustic band that started as a 2-piece, it's a duo, with me and my friend Doug Brode, and really was designed to be this band that we could pack up and play for benefits or fundraisers without having to worry about charging. That's why we started that band. We're both involved with St. Jude. St. Jude runs, and we wanted to be able to, perform music that didn't cost anything for these fundraisers. And So the Corn Wolves ended up kind of growing and changing, and it's actually now a 5-piece band that does still play lots of fundraisers, and we still play very closely. We're still closely tied to St. Jude, but it does a lot of other stuff too. And that band is myself, B.J. Price, Roland Millington, Eric Wrigley, and Bill Truelove. And so we've been doing that pretty regularly for about the last 6 or 7 years. And then most recently, I don't know if you guys have heard about it, but this COVID thing hit. I don't know if you're aware of that when it happened, but it kind of shook things up a little bit. It changed, I think probably for every band playing, it like suddenly changed everything because we didn't have anywhere to play, you know, and you know, we were all stuck inside. So, but I did end up getting together with these guys. I got a call from George Herbst, plays in Jam Sandwich, plays bass with us now. Got a call from him about this band that they were putting together called Revel in Red. And it was, at the time, Gary Horry, Thomas Edwards from Bubblegum Jack, George, and Ryan Rose. Incredible lineup. And I looked at that lineup and said, how do I even fit into that? I don't understand. Definitely not stylistically. I mean, those guys are all rockers, you know, classic rockers, and I'm not. But we felt like it would be fun to get together with this group of guys and just hang out. And so back in that January that COVID was starting to hit, we formed a band called Revel in Red and started learning songs and spent about a year kind of getting ourselves ready and practicing, and we've started playing now and are having a great time. So a bunch of old, you know, 50-year-old plus men starting a rock band and going out and playing in bars and stuff. So it's been a lot of fun. Why do we keep doing this? Why do we keep, you know, we're playing cover songs in bars on the weekends. It's the same places. We're probably making the same money that we made when we first started. I don't think the pay scales change much. I think we do it just because it keeps us young, because it's the exact same thing that we were doing when we were 15. We're doing it almost exactly the same. You know, I think that if there is a common thread between all of us who've done this for a long time, or did it way longer than, you know, there's guys doing it now who've done it way longer than I have. It's that it keeps us young. It is our social circle, you know. I mean, who better to go out and tell band stories with than other band guys, because they have band stories to tell too. You know, that's what I love about it. So I don't know. It's difficult for me to qualify, I guess, knowing that we're all doing it probably for the same reason. What a legend is. I guess if anybody in my little circle, my sphere, qualifies as a legend, I would probably say I look to Darren Peacock quite a bit. He's a hometown guy, and he literally has played music since he was a child and is still doing it today and is incredible. Makes beautiful music. Is, you know, an ultimate band guy. I look up to him quite a bit. You know, in my eyes, the guys who I've grown up playing with for 35 years are legends, you know, for playing that long. So Doug Rendelman, one of the best drummers I know, has, you know, he's still kicking it with me. And then now that I've kind of broadened my horizon and gotten out of Bartonville, you know, and have learned of these other great players from around these towns, I'm blown away that there are these other small towns around us that each have their own little music culture and their own heroes. And you know, Kenny and I were talking earlier before the cameras were running. One of the things I love, probably as much as, you know, going out and playing music, is learning about these other guys and what they've done and their stories. And you know, I love a great storyteller. Mike Eisenberg, you know, Pekin guy, spins quite a tale about, you know, the music days, the early music days of you know, music in the area, and it definitely was a different time back then. I mean, the place that music had in people's lives, and, you know, the opportunities and stuff. I love that stuff. I eat that stuff up. I hope someday somebody is telling stories about this whole group of people who plays now that are like that, you know, these legendary stories. Some of them must be tucked away, carefully stored in a place where no one can find them. But I hope that, you know, we all play long enough that we make that much of an impact. I mean, that somebody somewhere is, you know, telling this story later on down the road. But that's, I guess, that legend thing, that's a tricky one. That is a tricky one. Yeah, I don't know how to answer that. I have so much respect for all these players around here. They're, you know, and to have had the opportunity to play with this long list of people, who I will now list by name, each of them. Here we go. No, I'm just kidding. I can't. I don't know. But we've had some great opportunities to play with some great people that have come in and out of the bands, or that have subbed. You know, you think about these times. If you had to sit back and say, these are all the people I've ever played with, and you had to name all the people subbed or sat in at times, you couldn't do it. But, you know, just this opportunity to play with this community of musicians around here is unreal. And music is like that. It you know, you start doing it and you do it long enough, and it opens up these weird opportunities for you wouldn't normally have. You know, several years ago, I think probably about 10 years ago, I was in a club in Washington, D.C. and for a work event. Oh, see that bass? Kick ass! That was huge. Tom Edwards would love to have caught that bass just now. I don't know what he did on his video, but it's not going to come up again. Kenny's scared of it. But about 10 years ago, I'm at this club in Washington, D.C. called the Rock and Roll Hotel, and I'm asked to play with this band who's playing there. And the band that is playing there is Mark Rivera, who is the saxophone player for Billy Joel's band. He's the band leader for Ringo Starr's All-Star Band. He's the sax player. The guitar player is the guy from the band Orleans, you know. Still the one. You know, what a weird random thing to happen in your life just because, you know, you've learned a few cover songs. And so this lifestyle has never stopped giving back to me, you know, in both little and big ways. And so, yeah, I don't know if I can tell you who a legend is. I have so much respect for all of them and their stories that they're all kind of legends to me. Road Tales. I guess a required segment of Kenny's videos here. Do we have road tales? Yeah, we got a couple road tales. Some of them I won't tell, but to me, for rumor has it, most of the road tales were about our crappy van that we had. Didn't all bands have a crappy van or bus? So we had I would say ours was like literally one of the crappiest vans. We had this beige van that was also the color of Mondo, because most of it was. And on the roof of it, Sean Bryan had painted a huge target and then the words "Pilots suck." But my memory that I have about that was driving home from a college gig we did somewhere in, I don't remember, Carbondale or something, and it was an ice storm, and we were coming home in that shit van, and the heater went out in it, and there was no way to keep the window unfrozen frosted, so we stopped at a Walmart, and Sean bought a ton of candles, decorative candles, and so we were driving down the highway in this van with 25, 30 candles lit on the dashboard, and of course we're pulled over by an officer of the law, and we were ordered to park the van forever, someplace preferably that it would be demolished. But yeah, that's a road tale. Another good road tale, and Doug Rendelman will love this, but I've never laughed. I had to think, like, which one have I laughed at the most? The time I laughed at the most was we'd played a show in Iowa, and we're on our way home, and I was riding with Doug in the front of his truck, and we were both falling asleep. We were just tired as hell. And so we pulled over to a gas station and, you know, got some stuff to keep us awake. And what Doug chose was one of those huge pixie sticks. You know what I'm talking about? The plastic ones that are like that long and just filled with candy powder. And he has these pixie sticks that he decides while we're driving down the road with his sunroof and the windows in the truck all rolled down, he's gonna open this and try to dump it into his mouth while we're driving. And of course, as you can imagine, the wind literally blows all of the pixie stuff into his face, and he looks over and he's screaming as we're going down the road, and his tears are purple from the pixie dust. I've never laughed so hard in my life, but anyway, that was boring road tales. No sex, no drugs, just pixie.
Are you filming this, you son of a bee? So the weirdest opening gig that we ever had was James J.Y. Young Styx. We played with him in Champaign or Danville, one of the two. And he was as weird as it gets.
Keep moving along so we don't burn battery.
Well, I'm going to use this as an opportunity I don't know why we're dripping so hard, but...
Yeah, it's just a breeze. That probably, your covering probably,
Yeah.
It's acting like a sail.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'll get down here a little bit so we have some room to drift if we have to. I have done one show on the boat. So we, last year, it was definitely a COVID thing. There was a boat parade. I don't remember what holiday it was for. We did a boat parade, played music.
You're good, relax.
We're remote.
Walks down the street, he says, why am I soft in the middle now? Why am I soft in the middle when the rest of my life is so hard? I need a photo of opportunity, I want a shot of redemption. Don't end up a cartoon in a cartoon graveyard. Phone, dogs in the moonlight, far away my well-lit floor. Mr. Beer Betty, get these mutts away from me, I don't find this stuff amusing anymore. If you'll be my bodyguard, I can be your lost power. I can call you Betty, when you want me, you can call me out. A man walks down the street, he says, why am I short of a countryman? Short little span of a countryman. Well, my nights are so long. Where's my wife and family? What if I die here? Who'll be my role model? Now that my role model is gone, he ducked back down the alleyway with some roly little back-faced girl. He looked around and around. There were incidents and accidents. There were hints and allegations. And if you'll be my bodyguard, I can be your lost power. I can call you Betty, when you want me, you can call.